We have seen that asking questions and even having doubts can be a good thing. They can stretch us, cause us to search for truth, and lead us into a deeper love and commitment to the one who is truth. Someone once said, if you rake, you get leaves, but if you dig, you get diamonds. Asking the tough questions and seeking out biblical answers to them requires us to dig. And when we do, we open ourselves up to a greater understanding than ever before. So let's get to some additional big questions on our list. Does God really exist? What reasons do we have to believe that God exists? Are there any evidences that we can point to that would make it more reasonable to believe in his existence than not to believe? Now, belief in God's existence may not be a question you have really ever given much thought to. Perhaps from your own experience or through your own observation of the world around you, belief in God's existence seems obvious. However, despite whether you have struggled with this topic, I can assure you that there are people in your life that have asked this question and, in fact, may still be struggling with this very fundamental belief. In this session, we are going to look at those reasons and evidences. Now, we could obviously spend an entire study looking at the overwhelming evidences and reasons we have to believe that God exists. But given our limited time, we are going to approach this question as if we are talking to an unbelieving friend or family member who may or may not accept the authority and inspiration of Scripture. And because of that, we are going to begin our journey in this discussion by pointing to sources of authority that they may likely consider, sources like philosophy, science, and just overall clear thinking. Now, let me forewarn you, the interview you are about to see discusses three particular arguments for God's existence. The names of these arguments are a mouthful in themselves, but don't be turned off by that. We are going to explain these in our talk as well as in the written portion of the study. Nevertheless, it is going to require you to buckle up and pay close attention for the next several minutes. Remember, we are after diamonds, and getting diamonds requires a little effort on our part in digging deep. So, have you ever doubted God's existence? Have you ever wondered whether belief in God's existence is supported with any good reasons or evidences? Have you ever considered what those reasons might be? To help us answer our next big question, I sought out well-known Christian philosopher and apologist Dr. William Lane Craig. Dr. Craig is a research professor of philosophy at Biola University and is the president of reasonablefaith.org. In addition to his many books, Dr. Craig is well known for his public debates with today's most prominent atheists. Answering this question of God's existence, you are very well known for presenting a version of the cosmological argument, presenting it in several of your debates around the world and in several of your books. Can you explain to us the nature of the cosmological argument and why it is important for this very topic?
The cosmological argument comes from the Greek word cosmos, which means the world. And the argument is that the best explanation for why the world exists is that there is a transcendent creator who brought the universe into being. And this argument can be very simply stated in just 3 steps. Number 1, whatever begins to exist has a cause. Number 2, the universe began to exist, from which it follows logically, number 3, therefore the universe has a cause. So on the basis of this argument, we have reason to believe that there is a transcendent cause beyond the universe of space and time, beyond matter and energy, which has brought the universe into existence. And an analysis of what it means to be a cause of the universe discloses that this being must have a number of very striking properties which make its identification as God very plausible. So I think that this argument, based on the beginning of the universe, gives good reason to believe that God exists.
What would be some of those philosophical and scientific evidences that would suggest the universe came into being?
There are two primary scientific pointers to the beginning of the universe. One would be the expansion of the universe, which shows that the universe is not past eternal, but had an absolute beginning in an event called the Big Bang, in which all matter and energy, time and space themselves were created, and this marked the beginning of the universe. The second scientific pointer would be the second law of thermodynamics. The second law of thermodynamics predicts that in enough time, the universe will eventually run down to a state of heat death, when the universe will be in a dark, cold, dilute, and lifeless state. Now, if the universe has already existed for infinite time, then it should already be in such a state. The fact that we are not in such a state of thermodynamic heat death indicates that the universe is not infinite in the past, but had a beginning a finite time ago and is in the process of running down.
How do atheists give an alternative version for the existence of the universe? And how do those explanations fail?
It's very interesting to see how atheists respond to this argument. Many of them will deny the first premise, that whatever begins to exist has a cause. They will say that the universe simply popped into being uncaused out of absolutely nothing, which, when you think about it, is worse than magic. I mean, when a magician pulls a rabbit out of the hat, at least you've got the magician, not to mention the hat. But on these views, the universe, for no reason whatsoever, magically popped into being, uncaused out of absolutely nothing. And if that is the alternative to theism, then I say the atheist is welcome to it, because I think nothing could be more implausible than a scenario like that.
So we've talked about the cosmological argument. Let's talk a little bit about moral arguments for God's existence. What is a moral argument? What would a moral argument look like?
Good and evil, right and wrong, and an objective difference between those properties. And the claim would be that this difference is best found in the existence of God, who is a sort of moral absolute, who provides a plumb line, so to speak, for distinguishing between good and evil, right and wrong. So the argument might go like this. Premise one, if God does not exist, then objective moral values and duties do not exist. And by objective moral values and duties, I mean moral values and duties that are binding and true independently of human opinion. And if there is no God, then it's plausible to think that moral values and duties are not objective in that sense. A good many atheists and theists alike would agree that in the absence of God, moral values and duties are just the spin-offs of biological evolution and social conditioning, and they have no objective validity. Premise two would be, but objective moral values and duties do exist. In moral experience, we apprehend a realm of objective moral values and duties that impose themselves upon us. For example, we know that it's wrong to walk into an elementary school with an automatic weapon and to shoot little boys and girls and their teachers. And anyone who fails to discern this moral truth, I would say, is simply morally blind. And we have no more reason to allow his impairment to cause us to doubt what we see clearly than we would the impairment of a blind person to see clearly physical objects around him. So given the truth of those two premises, it follows logically and necessarily that therefore God exists. So I think this is a very powerful moral argument for the existence of God.
Another famous argument for God's existence is called the teleological argument, or arguments from fine-tuning. These arguments have gained lots of traction over the years in light of current scientific discoveries. Explain to us the nature of a teleological argument and what it might look like.
The teleological argument is the old argument for design. It argues that the best explanation for the complex order that we observe in the universe is that there is an intelligent designer of the cosmos who has planned and designed the universe to be complexly ordered in this way. And the cutting edge of this design argument in today's science is the fine-tuning of the universe. During the last half century or so, scientists have been stunned by the discovery that in order for life to exist anywhere in the universe, the initial conditions present in the Big Bang itself had to be fine-tuned with a complexity and delicacy that literally defy human comprehension. For example, it's been shown that if the force of gravity were altered by as little as 1 part out of 10 to the 100th power, the universe would be life-prohibiting. If the cosmological constant, which drives the acceleration of the universe, were to be altered by as little as 1 part in 10 to the 120th power, it would have prevented a life-permitting universe. And there is a multiplicity of these constants and quantities present in the Big Bang, which must be fine-tuned in this way in order for the universe to be life-permitting. Now, this affords a kind of argument then for God. It would go like this. Premise 1, the fine-tuning of the universe is due to either physical necessity, chance, or design. Premise 2, it is not due to physical necessity or chance. 3, therefore, it is due to design. So here's an argument for a designer of the cosmos which is based upon eliminating the alternatives of physical necessity or chance. And I think it can be shown that both of those explanations are less plausible than the explanation of design, and that therefore the fine-tuning of the universe gives us good reasons to believe in a transcendent cosmic designer.
For an unbelieving friend or family member, these types of arguments can be really helpful as they consider the reasonableness of belief in God. In fact, I would even go so far as to say that reasons and evidences like these are enough to overturn atheist or agnostic beliefs. If the person is being intellectually honest and is willing to follow the evidence where it leads, then they would come at least to the conclusion that it is more reasonable to believe in God's existence than not believe. The cosmological argument demonstrates, by appealing to both philosophy and science, that it is ludicrous to believe that something came from nothing, and also that even science itself points to a beginning of the universe. Now, you may have reservations about the Big Bang. I'm not trying to persuade you of its scientific credibility, nor am I remotely interested in talking about the age of the Earth at this point. Whether you believe the Big Bang is really beside the point, because the people you were talking to, they do believe it. The larger scientific community affirms the Big Bang as pretty much the standard model for describing the beginning moments of the universe. However, on the flip side, I will say that you shouldn't feel threatened either by the Big Bang. Science, as we will see later in our study, is limited to the things it can speak into and explain. It may be able to use scientific research and discovery to note that the universe isn't eternal and did have a beginning, even though it isn't capable of speaking into the person who brought it into being with the word of his mouth. In fact, even atheists who have argued for the Big Bang have been somewhat afraid of its theological implications. For them, the Big Bang, regrettably, looks a whole lot like the Christian view of the origin of the universe, being the direct causation of an infinite being. In the end, there are lots of reasons why belief in God's existence is a rational belief, supported by evidences and clear thinking. And by considering arguments like these, not only can you increase your own confidence in your Christian beliefs, but you can confidently explain the reasons for your beliefs to others who may not be as sure. But while reasons and evidences may help overcome the intellectual obstacles of the people you talk with, they fail to transform a person's heart and life. Only Jesus can do that, which is why we should point people continually to Him, who is not only convincing and persuasive in His own right, but capable of transforming a person from the inside out.